Hello and welcome to Cooking the Books with Heather. Today we are continuing to work out of Deep Run Roots, Vivian Howard's cookbook, and we are going to be making the elbow lick tomato sandwich. We really wanted to have this for lunch today, but my husband didn't realize that we have some red onion that needs to pickle for about 2 hours. So we're gonna have kind of a late lunch, but that's okay. It's Sunday, we had a late breakfast, it'll be fine. So the first thing I need to do for this recipe is to pickle the onions, as I said. And so we're gonna start with some sugar, just plain white sugar, some warm water, that'll help dissolve the sugar a little bit better. And I'm just gonna stir it up in this plain plastic bowl. And some red wine vinegar. This is just normal grocery store brand, nothing special. No Banyuls vinegar or anything like that for this recipe. Not for me anyway. I mean, she might use something like that, but it doesn't have to be special. All right, so the sugar is all dissolved. I don't feel any granulated sugar. You kind of feel it scraping. That's done. And now we have to cut this into 1/4 inch rings. So I'm gonna start, just as usual, cutting the top and the bottom off. And then trying to take off a layer, but not too much. And I'm gonna take another layer off because there's that part right there that is not very nice looking. I don't like cutting things into rings instead of half circles just because of this. I feel like I lose a little bit more just because of one area. Anyway. This recipe makes like 6 big sandwiches. We don't need that much, so we're really probably, we have a little bit smaller of an onion than we really need for this, but it doesn't matter. It'll pickle the same no matter how much you put in there, as long as you don't put too much. So we're gonna be making, some of the stuff we can't make a half recipe, but we're kind of making a half recipe. We're only gonna make like 2 or 3 sandwiches because that's all we need. But, so 1/4 inch rings. Or the best I can do at that. Yeah, cutting these into rings is especially difficult because it's round. Yep, that's not gonna be a ring. I hate this. I hate it. I'm sure it would probably be much easier on like a mandolin, but whatever. All right, that'll have to do. And we're just gonna put this, I'm gonna break them up as I go a little bit just so that they are broken up and maybe pickle a little bit better. She doesn't say to do this, but you know, I have ideas. We're gonna let these pickle, since mine aren't gonna be entirely coated with this, although it's not gonna be that bad, honestly, a lot better than it looked before. I'm probably gonna come back and stir this once or twice just to make sure they all get pickled pretty evenly. And we're gonna let this sit for 2 hours. We'll be back a little bit before that because we have to make smoked corn mayo, which means we have to smoke the corn, blanch the corn, smoke the corn, and then make the mayo. So we'll be back for that in just a little bit. Our onions have been pickling for about 1.5 hours at this point, and we have already smoked our corn. So first you blanch it, just like we did for hoarded corn. So I'm hopefully gonna link that up there. Definitely will link it down below. And then you put it on a smoker. You can do it on a low grill or on a stovetop smoker. We have a pellet smoker. So that's what we used. We put it on the smoker for 15 minutes. She said you're looking for it to get kind of honey colored. Our corn is white, so I don't think it's going to get really honey colored. It wasn't a yellow corn. whatever. We smoked it for 15 minutes, like she said. We did it at sort of a medium, and she says to use basically a fruit wood, apple, cherry, or peach. We had apple pellets, so that's what we used. But now we're going to cut this off of the cob and put it in this bowl for our mayo. This is super messy all the time. I don't think, yeah, she doesn't tell you to do this, but I always do this when I cut corn off the cob. I don't know why. I get all the milk and everything out that I can with the back of my knife, and then add it to it. I'm sure it'll be fine in this recipe. So, there's a little bit of corn husk that was still in there. That's all right. Took that out. Just keep going with the rest of our cobs. So I've got all of my corn off of the cob in this bowl, and I'm just going to clean up a little bit and bring over my blender / food processor for making the mayo. So now we're ready to actually make the mayo. She says to use a blender. This is my blender. It has this food processor attachment. It's a little less deep, and I decided I was going to do it in this instead. Normally I like to make mayo in the jar with my immersion blender, but I didn't think that would work very well with the corn that we're pureeing in it. We're only putting half in here to puree. I assume the other half just gets mixed in later. Haven't really read, but anyway, that looks like about half to me. So we add this. We need some egg yolks, so I'm just gonna separate them using the shell as I always do and hope that it all works out. Yeah, that's gonna be fine. Ooh, this one. Okay. Egg yolks are in. I'm gonna get the egg yolk off my hands. Okay. So we're also gonna add some fresh squeezed lemon juice. We're gonna add, this is 1 clove of garlic that I've already minced. It was a very large clove of garlic. Even though it's going in here pre-minced, even though it's going in the blender. We're gonna add some honey. Love, love, love this thing for measuring ingredients like honey, and also Dijon mustard, which is what I'm gonna measure now. And I think it's the same now. Oh, I put too much honey in there. Shit. I put like 3 times as much honey in there. It's gonna be sweet. Oh well, too late now. My, wait, oh yeah. Yeah, got my teaspoons and tablespoons mixed up. I thought that was a bit much. That's about right. So, if it's too sweet, my fault. Not stopping now. Salt. Add a little bit more later if it's way too sweet. This is supposed to be cayenne. I have this red pepper, ground red pepper that I have. I don't think I had any actual cayenne in there, but I think it's pretty much the same heat level as cayenne. It's fine. And we're gonna blend this until it's smooth. So I'm sorry, oops, sorry, but it's gonna be loud. Oops. Gotta get this just right. There we go. Now we're gonna slowly stream in. This is grapeseed oil. She says grapeseed oil, or I think sunflower oil. Yeah, or sunflower oil, that's what she calls for. Any sort of neutral vegetable oil would be fine. Oh, that is the little hole. And it's got a little hole that I can pour this in while it is going. You turn it on blend, and then you slowly drizzle in the oil, and that will emulsify it and make the mayonnaise. This does have a tiny little hole underneath this that I'm going to be pouring the oil in and hopefully not missing it too much. Okay, that should be mayo at this point. Looks pretty thin in my opinion. It's not, I mean, it's emulsified, but it's a very thin mayo, which kind of makes me worry. I'm gonna blend it a little bit longer just to see if that helps it thicken up, but if not, I might put it in a jar and try my immersion blender, maybe. All right. I don't think that's gonna get any more emulsified. It is pretty sweet. Again, my bad. I'm gonna add a tiny bit more salt to balance out the sweetness a little bit. But I think that's what we're gonna end up with as mayo. I've never had mayo be this loose that I've made before. I'm gonna put it in a jar and try my immersion blender to see if it helps, but I think there's just too much liquid from the corn and the lemon juice, maybe, for the amount of oil and eggs. That's my consideration. Although this is also called elbow lick tomato sandwich and is very, very runny. So maybe that's partly because the mayo is very runny. I'm gonna see what I can do. My mayo feels like a failure. It never got thicker. I did stir the rest of the corn into it and put it in the refrigerator. It'll be what it'll be. It tastes pretty good. It is a tad sweet. Whatever. It is what it is at this point. This is the bread we're gonna use. It is the sweet potato onion bread that we made previously. Hopefully I'll put a little tag up here, and I'll definitely link it down below if you wanna take a look at that recipe. This was a bear to make. It took a really long time, but it made 2 loaves. So what we did was wrap this in plastic and aluminum foil, put it in the freezer, and I just rebaked it for about 15 minutes earlier so that it would, it's warm but not super hot now, but so that we could go ahead and use it for this. And as I said, we are gonna do a half of the recipe. So we're just gonna cut this in half before we slice it the other way, because we're not gonna use this half. We're gonna use this half. And she says to slice it along the equator, so this way. I'm not gonna do this up like this because I don't want to hurt myself. I'm gonna try it like this. Now look, I'm gonna have to show you guys. This is not this bread. Or at least if it is this bread, it is not cooked that way. Because this looks like you have nice bread and nice regular bread and slice it, maybe a thick, hearty, crusty bread. That's not what this is gonna look like, so deceptive. When I showed my husband that picture, he was like, that's not this bread. That's not what this looks like. I'm like, I know, but this is what the recipe says to do, and that's what we are going to do. Okay, that worked out okay. And now we turn this cut side up, and we're gonna put it in the oven at 350 and toast it. She doesn't say how long. I do like that bread. It is very moist on the inside. It was a very sticky dough. Anyway, we're gonna toast it. And while we're toasting it, we're going to get all of the other things ready. So I don't have the Cherokee purple tomatoes that she suggests for this recipe, but I do have some tomatoes we got from the farm down the street. So that's what we're gonna use. And we're gonna cut them into 1/4 inch slices as best I can. I'm using the bread knife because that is the easiest thing to use to cut tomatoes. A serrated knife like you would normally use for bread. This is not normally how I would cut my tomatoes for a sandwich, but maybe it will work out better. I don't know. She doesn't say to cut the core out, but I will probably cut that part out, you know, before I use it. Now, like I said, we're doing half the recipe, so this is about half of the tomatoes that it calls for. So if you're looking at the book and trying to wondering why I'm only doing this many tomatoes, well, now you know. Okay, and the only other thing we have to do while we wait for the bread to toast, I don't know how long that's gonna take, I'm just gonna keep an eye on it, is to drain the onions. So that's what I'm gonna do now. So these are our pickled onions. They've been sitting in here for about 2 hours, as she suggests. They don't look much different, but they do taste. I tasted one and it's not as sharp as a raw onion usually is, and you know, but it does have the vinegar flavor. So we're just gonna drain these for now, and anything we don't use, I will probably put back into the pickling liquid and leave in the refrigerator for use in something else. Our bread was in the oven for a good amount of time before it started feeling toasty, but it's pretty toasty at this point, so I'm happy with that. And now we're gonna just assemble our sandwich. So we start with slathering mayo on both the top and the bottom. It's still very loose, but that's all right. It is what it is at this point. I don't care. And maybe this is what it's supposed to be like. It's hard to say. So we're gonna put some on both the top and the bottom. I'm trying to figure out what else I could use this for. So, you know, if you have any ideas, let me know in the comments down below. It only lasts about 5 days. So, but if I make it again, I'd really love to have another use for this. I'm trying to figure it out. And I just don't know. So that's quite a bit of mayo. So I'm going to leave it there. And now we start layering the tomatoes. And I've cut out some of the core pieces, and we just do a layer. She doesn't say to overlap them, so I'm not going to at this point. And you do like 3 layers of tomatoes. So I'm just gonna try to make the pieces I have fit here as well as possible. And then because I use my fingers for my salt, we just sort of salt and pepper. This is the key to making a good tomato sandwich. BLT, whatever, you really need to season your tomatoes when you put them on your sandwich. Otherwise, not nearly as good. And then we're gonna layer it again. Oh, forgot one of these pieces. So I'm just cutting out the core piece because I don't want to eat it. Making sure if there are any areas that weren't covered so well the last time, we cover them. That's pretty good. Salt and pepper. This is 3 layers. This is definitely going to be a messy sandwich. And last layer of tomatoes. Got a couple of sort of end pieces that I'm gonna That's just a piece of bread. I'm gonna put there, and there we go. We used almost all of our tomatoes, so seems like the recipe's about right with the number of tomatoes that you need, because we used half the tomatoes for half the sandwich. And then we do salt, pepper again. And now we layer our pickled onions on top of this. And I'm sure basically however many you want is fine. I like onions. And one of my kids likes onions and the other one not so much. All right, now this is a huge sandwich. All right, we still have some onions left over. Like I said, I'm just gonna put them. I managed somehow to hurt my finger, and you can tell when you've been dealing with the acidic ingredients and the salt here. That's awesome. Anyway, so now we put the top on the sandwich, and we're gonna cut this into pieces. I think I'm gonna do about 4 pieces for this, 4 wedges. And it is going to fall apart because it is a super messy sandwich. But that's all right. That's falling apart. Getting through the crusty bottom is the hard part. This kind of bread. There we go. All right, we have this super messy elbow lick because the juices are going to run down your elbow tomato sandwich. Now, I do have to say, we have some extra bacon back there from brunch, and we're gonna try it as is, but we're probably gonna add bacon because that's just what we do. Anyway, we'll let you know how it turned out. On this episode of Cooking the Books with Heather, you watched me make the elbow lick tomato sandwich out of deep run roots. Now, it was the messiest sandwich I think I have ever eaten. As far as this particular recipe, it was not super hard. Making mayo isn't really that hard, but it has the smoked corn in it, so there's sort of an extra thing that you need to be able to do, smoke your corn, and not everybody can do that or has the means to do that at their house. You can probably get away with just grilling it. The smoky flavor was not super forward to me, so I'm sure it would be fine if you just basically made this sandwich with the tomatoes and regular mayo and maybe some corn in your mayo, and it would be delicious. We really did enjoy the sandwich. Also the bread. If it weren't for the particular bread that she calls for, this would be a relatively easy recipe, but the bread itself I would call hard. It's very confusing, even for a bread maker, it's not a normal bread dough, and the whole process takes a really long time. So that notwithstanding, if you used another bread, any sort of very thick, hearty, crusty type bread, you could cut it in slices. I think it would probably be a little bit better as an actual sandwich sliced bread, although it was fine, honestly. It was fine the way we did it. It just fell apart very, very well, or a lot. It fell apart a lot. Sometimes before we could even really get it to your mouth, things were falling off of it because of the 3 layers of tomatoes I think you could probably, in this picture, she sort of, instead of layering the tomatoes the way she tells you to do it, and the fact that the bread is different, it seems like they are sort of stacked this way, sort of like slanted and stacked on top of each other. I think that might make them stay together a little bit better, but I think that would also be hard to describe in the book. So to be able to keep it together, that might be a good plan. But all in all, it was really good. It didn't need the bacon, honestly. My kids didn't even ask for the bacon. They didn't like the bread to begin with, really, but my daughter ate the whole sandwich. Didn't ask for any bacon when we offered. My son ate all of the insides, including just eating the pickled onions by themselves. But he does tend to take his sandwiches apart and eat them that way because, you know, he's 6 and that's what kids do sometimes. So he ate all of the insides of the sandwich, but didn't eat much of the bread. So, you know, maybe family friendly. You could do this in ways that would make it easier, but with making the bread and smoking the corn, I would say it's a little harder recipe for a home cook. But it is a good take on the Southern tomato sandwich, which is usually white bread, slices of tomato with salt and pepper and mayo, and that's it, which is also absolutely delicious. But this is sort of a little bit upscale. Anyway, we really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed watching me make it, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe, come back and watch me make something else.